Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to reassemble a Pentair or PacFab, I think that's what it was called, Nautilus FNS filter, DE filter. I had to order new grids. Mine were in terrible condition. I inherited them when I bought the house, and so I just went ahead and bought new grids on eBay. These are pretty good. These are Pleatco Pure, and they're brand new. Of course, when I took this apart, I didn't know how to put it back together again. There's 7 of these full-size grids, and then there's one right there. It's a partial grid. It's a little bit smaller. And to put this in, they didn't leave any markings on this. I think the newer style does have markings. This one doesn't, so I've gone ahead and done it for you, and Huey here is going to help me show you where it goes. So if you take this apart and you don't know how to get back together again like I did, just set this on the ground and kind of take note of how this is positioned. Take the partial. Usually they say put the partial in last. I'm going to go ahead and put it in first just for the demonstration purposes here. I don't think it really matters either way. If you see these 8 nubs that I'm pointing to right here, that's kind of the starting position of each of your grid. Like this part right here will butt up to that blue nub, and then it'll go to there, and then it'll go around to there, and then it'll finally come through that little slot up there and terminate about right there. So I'll show you how that works. I can do this with one hand. Okay, so kind of like that. You can see how it fits into the slots, kind of butts up against that nub right there, and just goes through those slots. And it comes out right here. And now the manifold that sits on top, I've also marked the position of where that partial grid will sit, where it'll plug in. Kind of wrapped it in blue there. So again, take note of that. And I'm just showing this to you like this for demonstration purposes, but if you go ahead and line that up in that hole, which I'm not doing very well. Okay, you'll see that this area right here, where, if it'll stay without falling. Okay. This area right here is where that standpipe goes in, and of course it'll correspond to this gap down here on the bottom. So now at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that manifold off. I'm going to put the other grids in, then we'll set this template. I don't think it matters what side is up or down, but that'll sit down underneath what you're looking at here, but it'll sit down on top of the grids, and then this manifold will go over top of it. So we'll see if I can do that here. Okay, so I've put on 2 more grids, and I wanted to show you just real simple. This point right here was the original partial grid. I don't know if you can see the little blue tape that's in there. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I just went to the next, the next nub that's like right there, and started the grid and just followed it. Let's see if I can stand up for you here. Just followed it right around on the next set of slots behind the partial, and then went to the next nub again. You can see right there, pretty much bud that up to it, and just followed the next set of these slots all the way around. And we'll go ahead and put the rest of them in, and then I'll come back and show about putting the manifold on. All right, so here's our assembly with all the grids in place, and I put the little holder template piece on. Just keep in mind this little opening right here on your template or this holder will face the same direction as where that standpipe is, back on this side. So where that little gap is down the bottom. And again, I don't think it matters if this is on upside down or right side up or whatever. Just make sure that this ring here is where your partial is. Because if it's not, if you rotate them and you end up doing it like this, what you end up doing is you end up kind of twisting your bolts in here, so they're not sticking straight vertical. So make sure that that is like that. I'll have to put the camera down to put the bolts back through that hole. And then what I'll do is set this guy on. Can't do that. You'll set that guy on here. Get the bolts to come up through these two holes here. Get them all snug down on top of the grids on these little ports, and then finally tighten up the bolts. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Okay, so here we have our final assembled product. Make sure that you'll see on the top manifold here, there's a slot for the grids to fit into all the way around. Each one has a slot. So this one right here. So just be careful when you set that manifold on and you're trying to line up the holes with the grid pipe, that you get them lined up on there, but you don't crack these ribs by pushing down on them. Make sure they get in those slots, and then really make sure they're all seated nice and tight. You don't want anything loose, and then you get your bolts on, your nuts, and this one's kind of silly. I have to tighten it from both the top and the bottom, otherwise the rod just spins. But you want to really tighten them up real good and tight. That's gonna seat the manifold to the grid real good, and then prevent any leaking. And that is about it. So now it's ready to be dropped back in the tank. Don't forget to put the air filter back on, the little bulb, little mesh screen bulb. If yours is ripped, buy a new one, or if it's crushed, maybe you can just open it back up a little bit, try to fix it, but they're not very expensive. But you want to make sure to have that clean so that it can breathe, and you should be good to go. Cheers.